Oh, yes. We are back.
Best start to a podcast in history, Greg playing random noises for no particular reason at all. In fact, the cash register noise is all these great noises. All these things are exactly what I think of when I look at this comic. I'm so glad you're playing them. Thanks for picking something that actually fit the cover.
You said his name 4 times before the podcast, and guess who is calling?
Darkseid?
Not Darkseid. The
Travis?
one, the only Travis Webb.
Travis Webb, creator of Starlight with Greg Smith and Brett Wadelli.
Yes.
Starlight, which we will review next episode.
What? Next episode?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is the end of the Great Darkness saga, so we need something to review, and we might as well review Starlight since I'm supposed to get it in the mail. And
oh my goodness!
Should have the the PDF, but since as an esteemed member of the media, I never actually get any advanced media copies or anything like that to review. You would think that Travis would want me to be prepared to review his book on my podcast that I host with you, so he could get good press for the next Kickstarter, which would be Starlight number
7.
There you go. Look, doesn't even know the issue of his own book that's coming out on a Kickstarter.
Number 7.
He had to count on his fingers and his toes and do some subtraction, square roots, some division to figure out. And you know why Greg has to think that much about the numbers in his comic book? Because he doesn't number the pages. If he'd simply number the pages, there would be no math involved. He could just say, oh, I'm on page X. That's issue 7.
I don't think the page numbering and the number of issues correlate to anything. I see. I think it would help you.
So you just have a random number of pages in your books.
Yeah. We have a random number.
It's kind of like a Netflix show. Yeah. Sometimes it's an hour, sometimes it's
half hour,
43 minutes, sometimes it's 113 minutes. We don't really know.
Exactly. Could be 8 episodes, could be 12.
Yeah, I love those shows when you sit down and you're thinking, oh, I'm going to sit down for like 45 minutes and watch the show. Oh, but it's a 58-minute episode, and you're like, okay, I need to go somewhere, but now I want to watch these extra, 15 minutes.
Fully invested.
I can't. Yeah, then I have to leave in the middle. It's fantastic. So those are my favorite. I almost I think the important thing about today is we do have like a 40-page comic book, and I think I should let the listeners know that Travis is not, but we are indeed a part of project-nerd.com.
Wow. Gee. Some exclusivity there.
Well, so the listeners should know, Travis once indicated that I'm not a published author, which is not true. But he did indicate that to a group of people at a Comic-Con.
And it is true. It is not true. You are a published author. But
I am a published author.
By proxy, though, is not Travis part of Project Nerd in a sense? If he actually...
No.
Well, I mean, his podcast is on our network, and our network is on Project Nerd.
Yeah, but we haven't negotiated for his podcast to be on Project Nerd. We'd have to go back
and upload those podcasts.
We'd have to go back to Iggy. Look, Iggy, we'd have to go back to Iggy. We'd have to renegotiate that. We haven't updated all of our podcasts onto Project Nerd. We only have recent ones. You just have to go to our feed and our YouTube, and you can get the old ones. And the most important thing about all that, though, is I would have to go to Iggy and convince him that Travis was of high enough quality to be on Project Nerd. And I'm just letting you know, Iggy has standards. So if you go to project-nerd.com, you should expect only the best podcasts with the best intros, just like ours.
Our intro is fantastic and great, and I'm glad that you mentioned that it is good. I mean, you could hear the sound perfect, crystal clear, because Greg has a new fan today, so Dan is a fan today as well. Dan is a fan of Greg's fan today.
I'm a fan of no noises that I have to edit out of the podcast. So as long as we have a new fan. And while we're on things that annoy Dan, I am annoyed with your other co-author.
What? Michael Tanner?
And his dismissive attitude on social media.
What did Michael Tanner do to you?
Well, he posted about how much he loved Fallout, and I just posted a little line about how I didn't like the fact that we didn't just follow one character at the start of the story. Yeah. And boy, he just said, I was limited.
You were limited.
In my viewpoint.
In your viewpoint.
Yes. Doesn't make arguments. He just attacks people and calls them names.
I find it funny that he made that comment to you, and then when I discussed the show with him, he was a whole different bunch of bananas.
Oh, yeah, that's funny. Well, I actually have watched more episodes, and, it's okay. And I will finish it. I'm only like 4 or 5 episodes in, so I will go ahead and finish it. But I was thinking, like, my favorite thing, did we already talk about this on the podcast? I think my favorite thing about playing the game of Fallout is you follow the person coming out of the vault and you learn about the whole world. And spoiler, which shouldn't spoil too much, but in the first episode of Fallout, if you haven't watched it yet, you can just turn it off. But if you've watched it, that's fine. I'm not going to spoil too much. I'm just going to say what they introduce. But they introduce the vault, they introduce ghouls, and they introduce the Brotherhood of Steel. Right? Like, I don't want all of that introduced at the beginning of the game. I want to discover it at the first-person viewpoint of the person going out into the world and discovering those things. That, to me, is the model of the game and what makes it work. And, of course, the Big A Studios decided to change that and make it different.
Yeah. Well, I would say from a viewer perspective, I mean, from the game player perspective, I can understand and I can appreciate.
That's Fallout.
From a Fallout game playing perspective, I can appreciate your comment, Terry, and your comment and your viewpoint. From a TV viewing perspective, from someone watching the show with my wife who'd never played any of the games and had no understanding of the world, she watched it and was like, "Oh, okay. What is this?" And I'd explain a little bit. We'd pause it.
Yeah, but wouldn't she go, "Oh, okay," if the world is slowly being discovered, and explain to her as she goes, so you didn't have to pause it and it actually explain the things to her?
And hold on to that thought for a second, because we're going to since we're talking about Fallout in the show for a second, there are some moments that from a storytelling perspective. And I think you can agree to this from a game-playing perspective and from a storytelling perspective as someone who is an avid reader of stories. There are some moments that could have been expanded and could have been tightened up to either explain things or progress things in different ways.
Like,
and
I know you have to pay a certain actor to be in every single episode, but wouldn't it have been way cooler if, say, that first sketch happened at the beginning of the show, and then say that character didn't show up until like the 4th episode or 3rd episode as part of the story?
I could see that.
Because it would have been the 3rd episode, right? And he would have gone after the head and all that. Yeah, so like that would have been kind of cool. But anyway, okay, I'm going to pause on that there because I don't want to give away any spoilers. Do go watch Fallout. But I'm just going to say this. Yeah. Now, it's not like they didn't have a model of a video game show that might have been the best show on television last year that followed the 2 characters as they learned about the world throughout the different episodes. I'm just saying something about the last of something.
Oh, I thought you were talking Twisted Metal, which no. Honestly, I felt Twisted Metal was a great way to.
Well, you can feel that, but it was not known as the best show on television last year.
It wasn't the best show, but it was a great way to tell a story from a perspective of here's a world, here is the lore, here are things that happen. It's not going to be like, because it's not going to tell it just as you know it from the gameplay, but here's how things get built out.
Well, maybe that's true, but Last of Us was, I think, probably the best show on television last year. Okay, well, sure you haven't. So anyway, the reason I bring up Fallout and introducing worlds and having to explain things is if there is a criticism of the Great Darkness Saga, I have a feeling that there are going to be some pages where I have to explain some things to Greg in this issue, who's never read the Legion of Superheroes
all these
until now.
Characters show up and you're like, who the heck are these people? Who invited them to the party?
Well, and I think it's an interesting discussion because the anti-criticism of Fallout is that, right, they're doing a lot of fan service, right? They're giving the fans what they saw in the game. And I do feel like this issue does both. I think it tells a story that anybody could just read and get excited, right, about what they're reading. And maybe they don't even know those characters. And the first time I read it, I didn't know a lot of those characters, but I just wanted to learn more about them because it was cool. And I was like, who are these people? And where did they come from? And I, of course, being the nerd that I am, sought out like back issues and stuff and tried to find out who those characters were. On the other hand, I do think it could be a little off-putting to the reader when all these characters show up and they're like, who are those guys?
I think anytime you got fan service where, like in the TV show Fallout, where there's a bunch of fan service, Easter eggs and other stuff like that, either for the fan themselves that knows the property, or for the new person watching it and becoming a fan, they're going to get excited by it. And then for the studios behind it, be it the game company or for the production studio, and same with the comic book company putting together this book for Legion of Superheroes and bringing all these different things and elements to this book and servicing the fans of the old stuff. And then myself being new, like you said, going back and finding any of those old characters that I'm like, who's that? All those things, what they do is they add up to because everybody wants to go find that whatever. And for all the different studios and people who produce those things, it just brings that back to the house.
Well, that may be true in this day and age, but I think here, the DC Comics is not going to make anybody any money off of people going and getting back issues, right?
Well, that's true. I mean, they might not make money getting back issues, but they might get people getting subscriptions or other things like that, or getting excited about things and going to those conventions and seeking down those creators and those creators.
Yeah. Now there is a maxi series that comes out of one of the teams that show up a couple years later. I was trying to look it up. It was not well received. So that did happen. But yeah, I mean, there was at least one spin-off from one of the characters we see. And so I'll mention that when we get there. But yeah, I mean, yeah.
Was it the baby?
I think.
Was it a spin-off of the baby?
Well, okay, so that we'll talk about that separately because that's not a Legion of Superheroes character, and so I will just say like, yes and no is going to be the answer, but it's not going to be set like in this timeline, right? Like it's so, and it may have had been given to some guy. Well, there's two appearances, and okay, look, we'll get into that when we get into Darkseid stuff.
Open a can of worms, people.
Yeah, well, you did, because, I mean, we have some Jack Kirby, but we also have some John Byrne, and which, thinking of Jack Kirby makes my soul warm and happy and excited, and all the Kirby crackle we're working at the cover. And thinking of John Byrne makes me want to torch comic books. So it's, a fundamental difference, right, in how we're going to approach the world here.
Cataclysm.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's that. But, yeah, I mean, it's definitely based off this book, we're going to have a reinvigoration. I don't even know if that's a word.
We're reinvigorating ourselves with the comics.
I have a doctorate in words, so I get to make them up.
You know with things.
Yeah. And I think there is a Fourth World Omnibus with the John Byrne stuff in it, if people want to go read it. So, but anyway, I don't want to talk about the John Byrne stuff first, though. I think we should probably bridge that when we get there. So we should probably jump into the book. So this is one of the most iconic covers for the Legion. It's run everywhere. There is a big Darkseid head on it. There's Kirby crackle all around it, and cool. The Legionnaires are on their knees worshiping Darkseid.
Oh, and that's scary stuff right there.
Yeah, it's not so good. I was gonna ask you. There is a pseudo reference to the Japanese battle flag.
I don't think so. Looking at it, it's not so much. It's a sun in the background, but I think what you're getting, what you're seeing on this cover is not that.
Okay. And that's what I was going to ask you. Is it too close?
No, it's not. You're just seeing you're seeing a sun in the background with some crackle and stuff like that, but it's not in the broke out lines and stuff like that. So it's not quite there.
Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering how close you thought it was.
Same colors, but not quite.
Yeah, I mean, this cover, like, we talked about the last cover. We talked about the covers getting better, right? I think the first issue with the servant walking on the white background with the miscolored logo, not necessarily something people would grab off the newsstand.
No.
It looks very Bronze Age. It doesn't look like the Giffen stuff that we're seeing. The second issue where the ball of energy on it and the Legionnaires in the dark, The one with the baby on it, we said maybe, but there is the cool fight scene in the background. Last issue with the logo being torn down and everything, definitely grabbing that. And then obviously, this cover. I mean, if you're a kid walking by this, you're like, this is immediate, right? You're grabbing this.
This looks pretty epic.
But you got to pay $1 instead of 75 cents.
But you'd pay $1 for this. It's got an extra. It's a giant size book. It's a lot. It's a lot of book to get. You know, it's.
I mean, 60 cents. It's $1 instead of 60 cents. So
it's 40 cents. 40 cents worth it for extra pages.
Well, I think so, because the other thing I'll say, well, let's get into it. I want to get into the book. This is a Giffen and Mahlstedt cover, and we're in, and it says DC where the action is down in the corner, because it sure is. We are here. Just by the way, like with this book, it's a December 82 cover date, so we're looking at a release date of October, and between this and what's going on in New Teen Titans, wow, like they've really made a turn, transitioning almost from the Bronze Age to the modern age, right? Like we are here, and it is, the funny thing is, it feels almost like a Marvel Bronze Age book.
Yeah. It has that feel.
And it's like DC finally gets it. They're
like, hey, check it out. We can come to the table and bring you the thing that you've been wanting. Check this out. And I'm not even gonna lie. When you start reading this book, it definitely has it. It is like gloves are off. If you were thirsting, you're thirsting for that thing, better drink up, because this is your damn bottle.
Well, and we start off with the page with Brainiac 5 restating what he said last issue. The conclusion is inescapable, my friends, we face, and it's Darkseid in big, rocky letters. And we get the epic conclusion of the Great Darkness Saga by Paul Levitz and Keith Giffen, writer, co-plotters, and penciler. Larry Mahlstedt inks. John Costanza on letters. Carl Gafford on colors. Laurie Sutton and Karen Berger, introducing Karen Berger as a co-editor of this book. She didn't go on to do anything important in comics.
No, I hear she made a couple of good movies, so.
Something with Verta and Go. Well, and finally, because we know it's Darkseid, dedicated to Jack Kirby with respect and thanks.
Yeah.
So the king has been named, and here we go.
I don't think you could make this book. I'm going to just say it. You cannot make any of this book and not have him in here.
Well, and I don't think, honestly, here's the thing about Keith, too. Keith does not draw like Jack Kirby, right? Nobody draws like Jack Kirby. But the Kirby crackle, the cosmic, all the Kirby things here, almost Silver Surfer-like dedication in a lot of respects with all the cosmic stuff and everything. Yeah. I mean, I hope Jack liked it. I actually have never seen an interview about this. And the reintroduction of Darkseid into the DC from Jack Kirby's perspective. I think the reason is, and this is, I guess I'll bring it up already. So Superpowers is introduced in 84, so a couple years late, about a year and a half later. So they do bring Jack Kirby back to draw Darkseid again in the 5-issue Superpowers miniseries. So, they do bring Jack Kirby back into the DC fold temporarily. But that's a Super Friends book, right? Like, that's the weird thing. This is so Darkseid.
Yeah.
And the Superpowers show and the Superpowers comic, the art's amazing. The models are amazing. But it's like Darkseid is a mustache twirling villain going ha 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 and going back through the boom tubes. And this Darkseid is not that.
This Darkseid is like, I'm gonna kill you. And I'm gonna kill all your friends and your family, and I'm gonna destroy everything.
The universe.
I'm gonna destroy it all, and I'm gonna do some more stuff, and we're gonna get to that, and it's not gonna be pretty. And I'm like,
and so
after we hit page 20, I'm like, I'm just saying it right there on page 2. I mean,
Yeah.
You hit page 20, folks, and it is like the book changes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah. And we do also, just looking it up too, we do get a 6-issue New Gods series from June of 84 to November of 84, drawn by Jack Kirby.
And I will say this, if you haven't read the New Gods books, people, and maybe we might jump into that later, but like it's definitely some cool stuff. Kirby had some really interesting ideas, and I don't think a lot of people might have been ready for that type of story.
Well, I mean, we did cover OMAC.
Yeah, we covered OMAC.
And so I stayed away from the New Gods on purpose when we went back and covered that book, just because I wanted to cover something Kirby, but I didn't want to get into all the New Gods lore because I would have to read everything.
Yeah,
I feel like
it's a lot, and I mean, I picked up the omnibus. Like, my mother-in-law gave me like here's some fun money. Go buy something cool for yourself, and I was like, I'm just gonna go pick up this Jack Kirby omnibus. And
oh, you have the omnibus?
I do. The New Gods one.
Why don't you? You should tell me these things. Yeah, I was gonna buy it. Well, this ended up. So being the Legion collector I am, they've just did a volume 2.
Yeah.
And volume 2 has this in it. So I've got to go get volume 2, even though I have this reprinted twice and the originals. So maybe I don't need volume 2 Jack Kirby stuff, but then
you should.
I mean,
how do you not want Kirby?
And then
anyway.
So
I mean, we could talk that.
Yeah,
that's a whole other discussion on stuff.
Well, and DC keeps trying to bring the New Gods back, right? They do it again. It looks like I thought it was John Byrne, so I was wrong. So Paris Cullen's got a shot at it from 89 to 91. So yeah, it was even further out. So, I forgive you, John Byrne. Like they gave some other people a shot.
I'll say it on the podcast. Like, DC, if you're listening, like, come at me, bring me in, put me in coach
to do New Gods.
Yeah, put me in coach,
or leave. Yeah, I mean, no offense to New Gods, but I'd rather have you writing Legion with me plotting it personally.
You'd rather do that than have me try to do New Gods.
Well, if you do New Gods, I will not be involved. But if you do Legion, I will be plotting right away while you write it. So yeah, I mean, like that's.
I mean, you seem.
I would love a shot at plotting Legion of Superheroes.
You've seen my taken apart superhero, my take at a taken apart deconstructed superhero book. So I don't know.
But anyway, we should get to the book because we are way off track now.
Well, that's what happens, man. That's what happens.
But we are in, and Dawn Star says something, and she says, "I understand, Brainiac. How can you put a name to the Master of Darkness, and why do you sound as though you expect us to know it?" And he explains, so we get some exposition because we're introducing Darkseid to the 30th century for the first time.
It's new.
So he explains, like, the machines on the planet, the horrors, apocalypse, it's real. Like, it's the ruins of this planet that just was scary. And, I mean, DC's done a little bit with Darkseid since. So, I mean, Batman even shot him with a gun at some point. So, it turned him into baby Darkseid. Which, that was weird. So, I'm not even sure how I feel about all that.
You gotta do what you gotta do sometimes. And Batman does what he does.
Yeah. So, Greg comes back with a vengeance here. And,
it's... Hey, you don't like it when I make too much noise. I put myself on mute, okay?
Yeah, in the middle of a podcast, he had to clean the office.
No, a box fell down, Dan.
Anyway, they explain everything. They start explaining to all the Legion who it is. Well, not all of the Legion, the group that's there. So we've got Dawnstar, Starboy, Shadowlass, Timberwolf, Element Lad, Ultra Boy, and Phantom Girl. I guess they woke them back up. And I would say Brainiac's 5 explanation probably lost on Timberwolf and Ultra Boy, but the rest of them are probably picking most of it up.
It's enough for a meeting.
It is. I do think we did. You know what? We were supposed to have drinks ready for this, and I don't.
I don't either.
And there's going to be I think we'd be dead because if we drank for all the Kirby Crackle.
Oh my God! Yeah. There's too much, dude. 42 pages of Kirby of anything? Yeah, no,
Well, the good news is, or bad news is, Brainiac 5 summarizes all of this by saying he is evil incarnate, and if the legends are accurate, he has the power of a god.
Okay, yeah. I like the image of Brainiac 5 right there with the somewhat negative space being used. Like this, just how he is utilized, and then the light shining through. It's just a cool image.
Well,
sorry.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's amazing.
It's a cool panel.
Like, yeah. And it was one more where Keith didn't have to draw a face.
Didn't have to draw a face, but it looks so cool in the absence of.
I will say, though, with Keith, you can also always see when he has to get stuff in a hurry, because the first big panel looks amazing. No faces.
No face.
Because everybody's obscured in shadow. Right. The second big panel, they're all looking away at the planet, so there are no faces. Then we get a panel with faces. Then we have another panel where they're obscured. And then we get Brainiac 5 obscured. So we only had to have 4 faces on the first big splash pages, which... But it's so cool.
Smart.
It's still cool.
Smart.
Well, now we're gonna have some faces.
All right.
So, Dream Girl is up in the ship listening to everything, and Sunboy's like, "Is there a chance he's wrong?" And they're like, "No, like, he is not wrong." And White Witch is like, "Darkseid, even the name sounds so cool." And Dream Girl's like, "Hey, we're frightened," and she's like, "Lightning Lad already sent for the active Legionnaires and Reservists, but that's not enough."
Not enough.
They turn on the general alarm, and they call everybody they can possibly find. So, first off, you see the substitute heroes, and they're like, "Oh, the Legionnaires are finally sending for us!
Yay!
Today we put the substitute heroes on the map." Okay.
I love that they get the call. It's great.
Now, another cool thing that happens in this book is we get the return of Supergirl to the book. And Superman, she's, I think, floating around in Superman Family at this point. And that book's about to come to an end. So we get Supergirl showing up back with the Legion of Superheroes. I don't think it's the very first time, but it could be. Yeah, okay, yeah. Back in Legion, Superboy and Legion 204. Okay. Most of her time seeing the Legion of Superheroes was in the Adventure Comics days in the 60s. So very cool. And and Supergirl will stay around in the comic for a while. Yeah, so... And then something happens in 1984 with Supergirl, and she doesn't get to be in the comics anymore
for a while. Minute. I might have some of those trading cards. Some
famous cover.
From
Crisis.
Oh, that thing. I thought you were talking about the movie.
Oh. No, not the movie. Yeah. This is, well, anyway.
Yeah, that's terrible.
We didn't get a lot of headband Supergirl in this one yet. But anyway, so... we go to the next page, and you were looking for death and murder. Yeah. You got
this it. This is horrible.
So let me read this one. So, to be precise, 3 billion superpowered beings under Darkseid's total control could be that terrible. The population of the planet Daxam bent on his fiendish will and sent out to conquer the universe in his name. They're doing a very good job for a very bad cause.
Yeah.
And you just see hordes of flying people just destroying things. We get inhabited worlds destroyed, they say. We get the Science Police arsenal designed to inhabit inhabitants of 100 different worlds are powerless. The Science Police outpost is getting destroyed.
Oh my gosh.
And it looks like all of Thanagar has been murdered.
This is messed up. This is like... and this is page 4, folks. This is rough.
Yeah. And it's interesting. You don't usually see the Thanagarian police or the Hawks like in the 30th century, but I guess Keith wanted to draw the Thanagarians, so there they are.
This is like now the third appearance I think they've had in this story.
Well, there was one like standing in a background,
just in the background.
Right?
Like they're two times they've been in the background in other issues.
Here's a whole bunch of dead Thanagarians.
Yeah. Oh man, foreshadowing. They're not around in the future.
Maybe not after this.
Oh my gosh.
So
it's terrible.
Well, now we get...
I just thought they flew away.
So now we get some folks in here, and we get a bunch of unnamed Daxamites And they're fighting a guy in a black and orange costume.
Oh, with spiky hair? Oh.
No, not that guy. Yeah, no. Sorry, that's black and blue and yellow. I was talking about the black and orange one. Oh, the black and orange
one. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, it's the guy saying, "Damn it, you guys cannot simply fly in and wreck a nerve center of the Interstellar Counterintelligence Corps like it was a toy, like a 10-credit kid's toy."
Kid's toy. Get out of here.
And in the background, we get some language that says, "Patience, DevM." So, if you were a fan of the Krypton show, you would have been introduced to a version of DevM. DevM was originally known as the Knave of Krypton in an original story, but he went to the future and he reformed himself and he became a good boy. But he didn't join the Legion of Superheroes, but he's been floating around in the background for a long time.
Just hanging out.
And it even notes here, because Laurie Sutton is on her game for this one, the whole story of DevM can be found in Adventure Comics 320, which is a long time ago.
That's good.
So here we go. And we also get introduced to another group here. I am a Volvo lad from the Heroes of Lawler.
He drives a Volvo?
So,
he's Volvo lad?
Yeah. He evolves. He can either become like a gorilla or become like a super evolved guy with mental powers.
Oh, okay. I thought he just drove a Volvo.
So he can de-evolve and evolve himself. Yeah.
He evolves and drives a Volvo. Got it.
We are going to see these folks again, but we have Life Last. She can make things, inanimate objects, come to life, so that's what was cool. Pulling the folks away. We have Duplicate Boy, who can duplicate anybody else's powers.
That's a good power.
He seems useful in this fight. Yeah, it seems like him and DevM are the only useful. And of course, though you don't see her using her powers because they're silent but deadly, we have Gas Girl.
Oh man, she drops the stinky bombs.
Yeah,
she can really.
Maybe. I mean,
because that always gets me. It's like it'll,
I don't know. I don't eat there because the food is disgusting.
Oh, you should. So. If you ever want to clean out real good, just like go there.
Yeah, I think there's like colon cleansing for that or something that probably even tastes a little bit better.
That's why they have an entire beverage line called Baja Blast. It's the lower blaster.
It's the extremities. Baja, is that what you take before a colonoscopy?
Baja means lower, and blast is what it does, so it's the Baja Blast, the lower blast.
Well, we will see the Heroes of Lawler again in this issue, but additionally,
like Jim Lawler. You say Lawler, the Heroes of Lawler,
not Jerry Lawler. Who are you talking about?
I don't know.
Are you just making up Lawler names
making
now?
Up Lawler names. Jim Lawler.
Jim Lawler, Jerry Lawler's cousin. Yeah. He was the crown court jester of Memphis wrestling.
He came in.
Yeah.
He was he was related to a Duplicate Boy. He could take his powers and.
Well, we get to the next page and we see the subs in action.
Yeah, this is a crazy page.
Yeah, so you've got subs in order. We've got, you may remember them from the Substitute Hero special, though one of the subs wasn't really active in that one. We've got Color Kid up there. Apparently is confusing the Darkseid. I don't know. We have Night Girl. If you remember, she has super strength, but only has it in the dark. We have Polar Boy, whose powers hopefully are self-explanatory. And we have Fire Lad, who spits fire, but is not having a good day because he gets hit in the head with a bolt.
That sucks.
And he's like, remember, we're the Substitute Legion, not the Suicide Legion. Clunk. So the good news is the Gas Girl in her gaseous form and DevM and Duplicate Boy come in. We've got Chlorophyll Kid down there using his Chlorophyll Kid powers to make a big tree to attack one of the Darkseids. But they note... and we get a reference to a couple of other characters, Orintho and Celebrand, and they are members of the Wanderers, and I don't remember if they get an editorial click, but that just these couple panels where we're reintroduced to the Wanderers are going to get their own maxi series in 1988.
Okay.
So it's a bit in the future, but in the maxi series, so we get this, we get a question here asked by one of the Wanderers. I agree, Celebrand, but can the entire United Planets be evacuated? And the editor says, the unanswered question hangs in the air ice cold as hordes fly off towards other targets, leaving their shattered victims behind.
Ooh.
When they reintroduce the Wanderers, and they don't say it happens here, but they say somebody has murdered the Wanderers and they've been cloned and brought back to life. So now they said it was and their story is to go find out who did it. I always thought it'd be cooler if they had just done these 2 panels, right? And they were like, well, yeah, I mean, they were murdered right here.
Oh, yeah. This is it. This was their big end.
I didn't think they needed to go back and anyway, I guess that would have ruined their mystery story. But the comic was pretty horrible anyway, so I don't know.
That's too bad.
It's probably my least favorite Legion anything.
You're like, it was okay. It was like,
I mean, well, anyway, okay. So, I mean, I don't know. Like, I mean, if you like bird sex, I mean, I liked, you might like that series. I liked bird sex on Lower Decks, on Star Trek Lower Decks, which you clearly haven't watched. Otherwise, you'd know what I'm talking about.
No, I have not, so I don't know.
Why have you not watched it? It is the best Star Trek series ever made.
I don't know. I watched Below Decks, Well, that's a different show.
Yeah, that's boring and stupid.
No, it's hilarious and funny.
Lower Decks is me. No,
oh, yes.
Really.
Have you seen it?
I could watch the Star Trek version of that in cartoon form, or I could watch a made-up fake reality show.
It's not made up. It's real.
Okay. Well, anyway, we
Trashy
have here...
Yes?
We have here Block and Lightlass guarding the child, who looks much older now.
The child is not a child anymore.
And they're talking about how he doesn't react to anything.
Unless you give him ice cream.
And doesn't cry.
If you give him ice cream, he might see joy.
Well, anyway, finally the ship goes out of control.
Yes.
And they're all freaking out about it. And one of the boom tubes comes in, even though they still don't know what it is. They don't know it's a boom tube. They just call it one of Darkseid's space warps.
Ow! Space
and
warp.
Here comes one of the Darkseid's slaves, and he comes to get it, and Sunboy blasts him and makes him mad. And he leaves, and he's like, "My master's hour, the dawn of great darkness that will cover the universe for eternity, and only oblivion you may escape him." So, well, anyway, the next thing is that's the sun servant, right? Because he's riding that skier thing. And a whole bunch of Daxamites just destroy the ship.
Oh my gosh.
And he takes the child, and all the Legionnaires are just floating them, and the Daxamites there, and the Daxamites just go off and do other things. So we've got a bunch of Legionnaires floating in Kirby Crackle space.
Just, yeah.
And now we're back on Takron Galtos.
Takron Galtos.
And it looks like a single Daxamite kid has destroyed the entire prison planet.
Just shop, this kid. With his, crazy eyes.
But he doesn't know how to use his x-ray vision, so he's, looking through.
Yeah, he's like, ugh, I'll find you.
Well, anyway, we've got Chameleon Boy is there with his bindings on, and he uses some judo that Karate Kid taught him. And
I love it.
he throws the kid into Validus' cell.
Oh, no.
And it's Validus, member of the Fatal Five, shoots lightning bolts from his brain. Yeah, well, I mean, if you're going to send him somewhere, and then Chameleon Boy passes out from a fever.
That's not good.
Well, we get to the next one, and good news. Yeah. All the Legionnaires are okay because good news, I guess every day
they have their vitamins.
The White Witch prepares her spell of survival. So I guess that's her good berries.
Good.
She's and she's saving everybody there right now and preserving the atmosphere. And she's like, my powers are so weak, my will soft, but I cannot let the Legionnaires die. Not when they fought so hard to save me back on the Sorcerer's World, if you remember. So, okay. She's like, there must be something within my power. So we flip the page. And she wakes up and she's like, hey, where is everybody? And they're like, they're all fine. We picked you up when we got your signal. And she's like, signal? He's
what do you mean?
No. Yeah. Well, I must have tapped in some reserve power. Good for her. She I thought she was a druid, but then she's using wild magic. So does that make her a sorcerer? Like what?
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, they ask her to prepare a spell, so she gets to do some ritual casting.
Sweet.
And she's gonna prepare one of the warps.
Oh, she can do that?
She's gonna prepare a boom tube.
She can make a boom tube?
Apparently.
I can make a boom tube.
Well, she's like, I've never done anything like this before. And she's like, I won't fail. And kaboom! We finally get it, a boom tube. It's ready. We get a kaboom. if I had a drink, I'd be taking it. And
it's a pretty cool page. Like all the panels, the way they.
And you can clearly tell it's Wildfire complaining.
Yeah.
Even though you don't see him. Witchy, do you think you could have come up with a smoother ride? Because, it sounds like something Wildfire would whine about.
Totally.
So, anyway, now we get... Oh, my God. Okay. This Darkseid side view.
Yeah. It's wild.
I mean, if you ever want to get me a Legion of Superheroes page that has no Legionnaires on it...
This one right here?
This one.
This is the one?
Yeah.
You want that?
Yeah, I think
you
so.
Like this page right here.
Yeah. And Darkseid is like, attend to me, my son. Take your pick of the slaves and kill them. We'll do it. He's like, as you wish, it'll be done. And he says, of course it will be. There's no other possibility. So now we're back on Earth, and it looks like Lydia Maller's clone has woken up, and Colossal Boy is fighting with her.
Yeah, he's just...
Again? Was I wrong? Shrinking Violet hadn't done this yet. I said she'd done this already.
Oh, you did, didn't you?
Last episode, yeah. Because remember, she was complaining about how helpless she was, and I was like, oh, she's the only one that's defeated any one of them.
No, she hadn't done it yet. She does it now.
Well, she straight up murders the Servant of Darkness.
Yep.
By giving her a stroke, so.
She Ant-Man's him. Ant-Man's her.
Yeah,
that's it. Ant-Man,
well, I would say Ant-Man stole Shrinking Violets.
Ant-Man stole the Shrinking Violet.
I think Ant-Man stole this, yeah.
Because I'm reading this.
I'm sure this was done in Marvel Comics before now.
I don't know. I want to put the time test to the test. Do the dates. I don't think they did. But
anyway, we get what looks like maybe some Darkseid's guard here. Looks like these are special suited Daxamites.
Fighting it out. It's a cool page.
Yeah. And we're on Daxam. It is a cool page. Now, it's an interesting page because we have Ultra Boy, who theoretically could hit them, and hopefully he changes back to his invulnerable self very quickly. Now, you'll notice that Ultra Boy kept getting knocked out over and over again. Yeah. Wouldn't you think he'd just stay in invulnerable mode all the time?
You would think.
As his natural state?
Yeah.
We've got Saturn Girl, who should be relatively effective against them, right? Because she even says they're confused because their will has been sapped, so she should be ultra powerful against them.
Yeah.
Lightning Laz zapping them with his yellow lightning bolts. So those should work, right? We got Wildfire. Now, here are the two that I'm not sure are going very effective. Bouncing Boy is fighting them. I'm not really sure what Bouncing Boy is going to do against Daxamites.
He's gonna smash on them. He's Bouncing Boy smash. Bouncing Boy bounce.
I guess.
He's gonna just sit there and he's gonna bounce around and hit him like bowling ball style. Kabow, kabow.
Well,
dodgeball.
I mean, in Legion lore, the fans basically at this time were saying like maybe Bouncing Boy was like invulnerable or something in the bouncing form, because that would make sense because he's bouncing around. And their Projectora back there, like just kind of looking at everything.
She's like, cool.
I think this is a misuse of her right here too. I think because if their will is sapped and everything, her illusions should actually be
totally would work.
Really useful in this fight.
The conclusion I would draw would be that her ability would be very strong because they would be weak-willed in that sense, and they could be messed with. They would see things that were not there and scared, and then they would attack these things that she would create.
Well,
but hey.
Yeah, well, we're gonna get some attacking here, some Daxamites in a second. Oof. And some questionable tactics here coming up. So, anyway, they get the kid back. They go. Shadow Lass and Light Lass are sent to go find the child, and he has knocked out all the guards around him. And it's just sitting there. And then above Daxam, White Witch is tired, and somebody grabs her and starts talking to her. It's like, I gave it to you, my child, as your teachers ask when they summoned me to oppose the darkness with the light. And now I must give you strength again, even more than before. I'm sorry to use you this way, my child, but the pain shall be over quickly, and your comrades shall have the chance they desire.
No.
And we hear Darkseid say, no.
Oh, wow.
So apparently they found something powerful enough to potentially fight Darkseid. So there we go. Well, we get Cosmic Boy is squishing one of the Daxamites with a bunch of stuff. And Starboy is complaining as usual. He's like, don't complain to me, Cosmic Boy. It was Brainiac 5 who came up with this let's get mangled as you go party. Which I think, again, and it's sometimes I just think Paul Levitz doesn't know how to write Starboy, right? Like, he should also be fairly effective against these guys, right?
I would think.
Like, I mean, he controls gravity.
Yeah, just pick them all up and, move them. Whoosh.
Yeah, and Light Lass too, right? Like, she also controls. Yeah. Well, anyway, now we get an obscured Element Lad, and he says, they're right, Brainy. We've attracted as much attention as we can without getting someone killed. It's time. Brainiac 5 says, agreed. And, he adds lead to the atmosphere. And let's see what they say. So use your power to transform the atmosphere of Daxam Element Lad. 1 part lead per 1,000 will activate their intense vulnerability. And since they lack the serum I created for Mon-El, and he's like, it worked. Now, Legionnaires don't kill. Did Element Lad just murder?
I think he just
every Daxamite on the planet.
No. He just made them real sick, Dan. He just used enough
as they're flying out of the sky.
He made enough. He just put enough in there to make them sick and fall out of the sky from various heights to the ground, and put them on the ground super gently. And some of them are sleeping now, permanently asleep.
Interesting.
He didn't kill them. None of them are dead, Dan. They're not dead.
Okay. Well, we get some hands down below that look like White Witch hands. It says, suddenly stars above seem to wink out of existence. Space shutters torn from the spell, far too powerful for any mere mortal to wield. Hands that are the White Witch's, yet not hers, seem to wax gigantic and enfold Daxam and Apocalypse as well. And as reality warps between them, they undo Darkseid's transferal. So they send the planets back where they belong. So Daxam is now back under the red sun, which is probably good.
That is probably good, yes.
Hopefully, they'll show Element Lad changing the atmosphere back to normal.
Hopefully. So the Daxamites are not dead. They don't.
Yeah, that would
suffering
be good.
From lead poisoning. Man, do they not use pencils? They just use pens?
There's some questionable. I mean, how
can they do Scantron test?
How are also like maybe one of the holes in the story to me is how are they wandering around the whole rest of the universe that clearly has lead all over it?
Yeah, these are big questions, man.
Maybe that's why they're also always remaining in space too and not going down onto planets. So you did notice like the Daxamites haven't really been attacking planets. They've been doing like things in space. Yeah.
They're just dealing with space people, space folk. Hey, space wanderers, let's get you.
Well, Darkseid's now getting pissed off.
Oh yeah, he's angry. He's so angry.
Because now they're back, and he says, so there is more to these mortals than superficial evidence admits. Very well. If they would undo the deeds of gods, then they must suffer, as do the damned. And he gives all the legionnaires that are there on the planet their biggest fear. Lightning Lads is losing his arm again, which, long story. He shot lightning bolts. He hit the Moby Dick of space with lightning bolts.
Not good.
Yeah.
And then his arm fell off.
And then it bounced back at him. Well, it bounced back at him and hit his arm. So,
terrible.
Yeah. And then, Wildfire goes kaboom again.
Oh, wildfire, kaboom.
Duo Damsel has to watch her third body die over and over again. We mentioned that with the computer story. You remember? Bouncy Boy loses his powers and what he makes him relevant. Dream Girl is made ugly.
She's no longer dreamy.
Yeah.
Miss Dreamy, like McDreamy.
Jonah is swallowed by a space whale. Jonah. See? That's Ultra Boy. His name is Jonah. Did you know that? Yeah.
That's funny. Is Pinocchio in there?
No. But it's an ultra energy beast. And anyway, that's how he got his powers. And Timberwolf was made to believe that he was a robot, was a android, so it takes his humanity from him, makes him think that, and he makes Saturn Girl see all the fears of everybody.
These are terrible.
And the Sun Servant says, "They are defeated, Master." And he says, "Of course, they always were." Now we shall correct our previous mistake, my son, and destroy that damnable child.
Oh.
And the servant and Darkseid come through a boom tube, and immediately Light Lass gets hit by one of the beams.
Yeah.
And
that's a cool page.
Shadow Lass. Oh, yeah. You could also get me this double page. I would be fine with that.
That's pretty sweet.
I guess I'm backing off. You can get me all sorts of paint. Anyway, Shadow Lass is blocking the child with her shadow powers, using the darkness against Darkseid. And Darkseid is mad. He's like, give me the child, woman, and he may go free, unharmed, and your fellows as well. I have no interest in you, but I must have the child. You do not seriously expect to hide with me in darkness. And he sends the servant into the darkness, and we hear tick, 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 and he says, not a damnable mother box, not here, not now. So that is one interesting piece. Like, I didn't know, like, what a mother box is, because I hadn't read. I hadn't read, right? So that's one where I do think they should have explained it, maybe just given us a little, like, editorial note, like, the, yeah.
The mother boxes are important, just as important as the boom tubes.
Yeah. But we get two characters that show up, and I had no idea who these people were at all, because I hadn't read any of the New Gods story. We did get an editor's note from Laurie Sutton. Anybody who doesn't know the story of the 20th century war of the New Gods against Darkseid's apocalypse, trust us, it's too complicated to explain here.
She's not wrong.
I do think she should have referenced, like, at least the New Gods issues, but she didn't. But anyway, Darkseid's now facing, looks like the High Father, who is not named yet, right?
Yeah.
You face your doom, Darkseid, your eternal doom. And he's just like, no, it can't be. And then, and again, not named yet, but we've got Orion, who is named at the bottom of the page. But Orion, so if you're not familiar with Orion and Mr. Miracle, right? Scot-free, Mr. Miracle, get it? He's an escape artist. Scot-free. Yeah. It took me years to realize what that was. I'm sad to admit. But Mr. Miracle was the High Father's son, and he was traded to Darkseid for Orion. So it was a peace treaty, and Orion was Darkseid's son. So, and Orion was sent to live with High Father to see if they could, if it was kind of a nature versus nurture sort of argument thing. And so Scott ends up going to Granny Goodness's orphanage and escapes with Big Barda and becomes a good guy. And of course, so nature, right? He's good, but also High Father teaches Orion to hone in his impulses, and he eventually becomes like a Justice League member and all sorts of different things and different incarnations. But right now, he is a reincarnated clone, and he is attacking his dad. So,
because he is alive.
And all of a sudden, Shadow Lass ends up at rescuing White Witch, and we have a massive Kirby Crackle battle going on.
It is wild.
On the planet as Orion and Darkseid fight.
Yeah.
And they say it's the next few moments will decide the struggle, while the High Father comes back and reinvigorates the Legionnaires, puts them back together, gets them ready to go fight Darkseid. And he said, the rest of you I heal with all that is left in me, and remember me that you shall know when you face the darkness that the light shall never die. And then he goes away. So the spell is gone, the reincarnated High Father is gone,
he becomes a Force Ghost.
We get the we get the battle here. Yeah. So now we're all the way to page 30 because we got page numbers.
Hey, whatever. Kirby Crackle everywhere, and all these words that are sounds. You'd be drunk as a skunk.
Well, to summarize this page, if you know any New God stuff, one of Orion's weaknesses is his overconfidence.
Yeah, and for sure.
He's like, I beat Darkseid. Haha, look at that. And Darkseid's like, you are my creation, my construct, my creature, not my son. Perhaps the prophecy has already come true, and that is why I slept. I have forgotten so much. Perhaps it yet to be. But hear me, son, in quotes. None less than the true Orion, greatest warrior of all the stars, shall strike by the death blow, and you are merely dust. And he turns back into the planet, right? Like he just goes back to the planet. And Darkseid's like, so Isaiah, in the end, you could not sustain yourself in this undreamed of time. Even the High Father has limits, as have all, save I. Ha ha ha. And then here we go. It looks like Superman, but it's Superboy and Supergirl just pounding on Darkseid.
Just coming in and pummeling in that dude, just giving the old 1-2, 1-2.
And just like he does to Batman and much later in comics, he hits the Superboy with the Omega beams and sends him back in time. This time politely sends him back to his own time, so he's not lost in time. Of course, this Superboy can actually time travel, so he just has to wait for the Omega beams to wear off, and he could have gone back wherever he wanted to anyway. And he says, and Darkseid gets, the chauvinist he is, of course, says, I need not even bother with the woman. Her own fear seems to make her vanish as quickly as my power would. And she's like, wrong. She comes up from the bottom. And Supergirl is just beating the crap and calling him a chauvinist. Yeah. Just beating the hell out of Darkseid. But then he warps away, and she flies through the warp, and she's like, do your worst. And she's like, that ought to hold him. And then Darkseid grabs her head and starts squeezing it. And he says, this is pain. I have not done this with my hands. In an eternity, child, you should be honored. How Darkseid, who was his torture servant back in the 20th century, loved this. A shame he is no more. And all of a sudden, one of Brainiac 5's shields comes around Supergirl, and Darkseid is hit with like every power possible at the same time. And he creates a little shield around him. And Dawnstar, it's like, we've got you now. We have you now. And he's like, you have me? Ha! You astound me, children. Karate Kid tries a super karate kick. It goes about as effectively as you would think. It's kind of like when like a monk tries to hit like a dragon.
Yeah. It doesn't work.
Even with the key power and all that. Yeah, it's not. Well, anyway. He's got like extra blows and nothing's hot. Yeah. Well, anyway, Saturn Girl speaks up and says, can't you feel it, Darkseid? Can't you feel yourself losing all your power, and you can't even defeat us? This is no longer the universe you knew, monster, and it is beyond your power. And
chills.
He says, I sense a truth in your words, woman, not based on this poor fool's efforts, referring to Karate Kid. Keith Giffen hates Karate Kid, I swear. Like, he hates his guts. And he says, what is it that makes you believe so? I'll let my mind range free, and I shall sense what pitiful threat you author. And then we see, and I guess the Wanderers didn't die, because there's a couple of them. There's Orintho and a couple, but we see a combination of Dev-Em, the Heroes of Valor, the Wanderers, and a whole bunch of Daxamites that are very pissed off, flying back after Darkseid. He's like, no. So my powers have waned over the millennium. While they focused on you, they proved insufficient for other needs, and my hold on the billions of Daxamites has ended. I've created an army of billions of super beings, and your allies are leading them to me.
Yeah, no, he's screwed.
And then we get in block letters on the side with Darkseid at the bottom, enough, all written out. I love when Keith Giffen does the words like this.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's a very neat, like, I don't know, as a kid, I'm not a good artist, but I would love to draw stuff like that because it just looks neat.
Well, we get the super cool like version here. Darkseid is yelling at the Legion. It seems there is more to you than I dreamed, youths. You have done that which is beyond imagining. You've shattered the dream of a god. And with that, he says their time will come, and he just disappears.
Gone. Out.
And
magician.
The Legionnaires all end up in space again. And Dawnstar's like, but he vanished, and his world disappeared with him. And Wildfire, because I'm sure he can't figure it out, says, don't try to figure it out. What counts is that he made him turn tail and run. Ha ha! And Darkseid's giant head appears and says, the wise man does not boast so swiftly, child, for though I'm gone, you shall not forget me. I leave you my curse, Legionnaires, doer of Isaiah's work, the curse of darkness growing within you, destroying you from within, and that which is purest of you shall be the first to go. That's his curse. And then we get a ship flying off, and we get the end. And then we get the next scene, epilogue number 1. Timberwolf somehow was put in charge of putting a new panel on the mission monitor board with the White Witches symbol. And Light Lass comes in and she's like, I've been thinking, Bryn, thinking about what happened. She's going to manipulate him again. And about the Legion. It wrecks lives, It nearly destroyed my brother, wrecked his health, and is ruining us. Maybe times were simpler when I joined the club. Or maybe I'm kidding myself, memory like that sometimes. But I know it's not what I want to do with my life now, especially not if we're going to have a life together. I'm quitting. You can come with me, Bryn. My flight leaves tomorrow. So the first is the purest will go. So we get, and it is interesting because we're going to get a lot of character development with this character later on in 84, 85. And then even later, she becomes her and Shrinking Violet become the first openly homosexual couple in the 30th century. That Shrinking Violet's character also goes through a lot. So obviously you're like, how is Shrinking Violet sleeping all over the place with Colossal Boy right now? How are you saying that that's going to happen?
Change, right?
Well, since we're not going to read anymore, this might not be Shrinking Violet.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
She may have been replaced by a Durlin.
Oh.
Yes. Which would also explain some of her lack of confidence in using her powers that have been expressed. And that plays out about a year from now.
Interesting.
So, yeah. And then...
Durlin.
So we do get an epilogue number 2. And we get Brainiac 5 and Kara. Because I refuse to call her Kara.
Kara.
How did you read it as a kid?
Probably Kara.
But on TV, they made us say Kara.
And then you're like, but that's not how I read it. Okay. Yeah.
Well, anyway.
Yeah.
She teases Brainiac 5 and is like, I'll be back. And did she call me cute?
Yeah.
So
Twitter pated. Oh my.
Yeah, he's like, well, anyway, we get next issue at last. Travel back to the early days of the Legion for an untold adventure that reveals why the Green Lanterns aren't allowed on Earth in the Origin of the Universe file. And what an interesting ending to a epic story where you didn't see any Legionnaires die, but we definitely saw people die.
Oh man, it was like, I honestly thought that people were going to. I thought Legionnaires were going to. I thought there was going to be a lot there was a lot of destruction and stuff like that. It was pretty epic. It was a lot of stuff going on, for sure. It was a heavy book.
Yeah, I mean, it's and cool,
Darkseid killed his own
son. Yeah, the art's pretty crazy amazing.
Yeah. I mean, like, the Durlin threw a child into a room with a dude that shoots lasers out of his head. Yeah. That's messed up.
It did happen.
There was some crazy stuff, Dan.
Well, eventually, some people are going to die.
Supergirl thinks Brainiac 5 is cute.
Yeah, that is true. So eventually people do end up dying from this curse thing. Not because of the curse, but the corruption, and the Legion gets a darker tone to it a little bit. It's still bright, futury stuff. I'm not going to say it just goes dark. It's not Batman Dark Knights or something, right? Yeah. Like I will show you why Keith Giffen hated a certain character so much.
Okay.
I'm sharing screen with you now. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they're back on Orlando again. Boy. And it's not looking good for Karate Kid here.
Not looking good at all. Oh my gosh.
It's not looking good. There's a very...
that's a dead Karate Kid.
I probably read this issue like 500 times as a kid.
Just because of the death?
Well, there's 5. It's a 5-issue arc to start the Baxter series, and they go back to Orlando, and the Legion of super villains has taken over Orlando, and they've got to solve that problem. So it's another. People don't talk about that story as much as they do this one. I may like it even better.
Interesting.
And then while I have this open, just to show you some more future things. Remember how I told you Light Lass originally her powers were lightning? Well, here you go.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yeah. So I think that's where we get a big character change for her, too, and a personality change. So it's almost like her personality was changed when Dreamgirl changed her powers, right? And then...
Interesting.
Yeah, and they even kind of cover it here with this cool flashback art by Steve Lytle. So... Anyway, I wanted to take you into a couple of the things like that were in the future, right? That were referenced in the story. And not, this isn't not too far future, right? So one of the things I wanted to show off to you was that all those subplots and things that were happening in the background in the world they're building, they don't just abandon it. Like, they do come back to it quite often. And when Keith gets tired of drawing the book, they put Steve Lytle in the book, who, he was amazing. Steve also had the problem of not being able to draw fast enough, though. So he also couldn't get the issues out, which was unfortunate because he was on for about a year. And then they go to Greg LaRoe.
Okay.
So, who's not as well known as... But I like Greg's art. I think people... I don't know. Legion fans don't like him. But I want to go back to this book because I think all the fan service in this book, right? It had to be there because remember, we kept reading those letter pages. And they were like, oh, we hate this. We hate this. We hate this. And then they were coming around. We like this.
Yeah.
And and it comes back to it. And I think also it's interesting because you as it goes through back and forth to dark future, shiny future, dark future, shiny future, you go from the Giffen art to the Lytle art, and the Lytle art is all like bright. Didn't he draw X Factor?
I think so. I have to take a look.
He drew one of the X books before coming over, and it's just a very different art style. And then the last thing I'm going to show you is the last piece of fan service before we get out of here. And we've got to review this one someday now that you've done some Legion. But this is Legion 300. And you can see the obviously different in the art because we had a whole bunch of different artists draw each of the characters on here. Like there's a Kurt Swan Ultra Boy right here.
Cool.
And then in this story, it's fan service because they basically have, and I'll just flip through, they have all these different art teams from the past. Including like a Kurt Schaffenberger Superboy, and they come back and they get Howard Bender to draw. There's some Kurt Swan in here too. They get Dave Cockrum to come back and draw his era.
Nice.
Is this not sick? And basically what this book is one of a character is he's dreaming all these different universes, and Brainiac 5 has to figure out how to resolve that. And they also this is the book. This is Crisis on Infinite Earths for the Legion because this is how they explain away different timelines that potentially were in the past. And it was a sweet way to do storytelling, but I wanted to bring it up to you because it was one more piece of fan service, right? That they really engaged in.
That makes sense.
And I like the fact that, but it's fan service. But if you picked it up, and I picked it up without having any Legion history. I must have read that book 1,000 times because I'm like, well, why do they have these costumes and what's this art and why is this story happening? And it's an encapsulated story, but it's, that was one of the other ones I was showing you. It's one of my favorites. So I need to quit talking about the Legion, but I mean, we're going to be done with the Legion for a while. So, I mean, I might as well get to talk about it for a second.
It's good stuff.
I want your thoughts. So what did you think about your journey into the Legion of Superheroes?
I honestly thought it was really cool. I thought it was great to read something that you really enjoy. And I got a chance to get a better understanding of it. I liked how we got a sampling of different artists who made the book their own for a moment and brought different elements into it and got a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and then all of a sudden you got to see it really ramp up and amp up to that future book and really move into that future feel. And it was really interesting to see when Giffen took over, and you're like, wow, the detail, the whole experience was a change. And not to throw any shade on any of the previous artwork that we'd seen, but it was just definitely a different book.
Yeah. Well, and Bruce Patterson inks before were good too. I thought the Patterson inks were fine. I think, the Pat Broderick stuff was still good, but I think he was better on Firestorm, and I think they put him in the right place too. Because those Firestorm books were good too. And
I definitely like the storytelling that was being. I like the way the storytelling was being brought along. I felt that it was a great pairing, storytelling and art. The way the team was put together, it was very well done. I feel like I said, the pacing, the building of the story itself. Every time I read a book, I felt like, what's going to happen next? And I thoroughly enjoyed that aspect of it because it made me really want to read the next book. And that's the kind of thing that brings people back to the newsstand, to the spinner rack, to whatever it is. That's the thing that you want to have in your, the storyteller you want to be telling the story. So it's just a good storyteller, man.
Yeah. Well, and I also pulled up the cover. Of course, you've seen this on my phone.
Yeah.
This is the comic that got me into comics. So back into comics, I guess. I mean, I had some when I was a little kid, but this is what got me buying comics all the freaking time, reading this book over and over again. The other really interesting about this book, I was talking about the different artists. This was a flashback book too, and you've got Giffen art in here, but the flashback is Kurt Swan.
Oh, yeah.
So the first comic that got me back into comics was Giffen and Swan drawing different pages in the book.
That's cool.
And yeah, isn't it? It's so cool looking too, right? Like, I mean, and even the contrast right over here, we've got this page with page 19 has Giffen and page 20 has Swan.
Yeah. I love the way that they utilize different artists to tell different portions of the story, to give different feels and looks to the different portions of what was being done in this series,
Yeah, and the flashback here, it makes it look like the Silver Age, right? And then and see now why I know so much about Lightlass's power change, because here's the flashback to Dream Girl. Yeah, so anyway, it's all there. So if you're wondering why I love comics, well, it may not have been a good issue for you, but Legion of Superheroes 306, got that on a camping trip to get me to shut up, read it over and over and over and over and over and over again. And then as soon as I had enough money to go to 7-Eleven and put 75 cents down, well, I was buying those books every month. So, yeah, it was, and it took me a good year to get, to start getting them too. That was the sad part.
Yeah, but that's what we did.
Year and a half. So we tried. I mean, I think that's just the pure joy of comics and why we do this. And, I know it's fun I know the listeners like it when I'm sad and miserable and the story's terrible.
No.
But, there's some days when I just want to express my pure joy for the industry and the thing that we collect. And these were the books that got me into comics. And now I have way more comics than any person should have because of this.
It's true, dude. You have a lot of comic books.
I just have a few.
Just a few.
Well, maybe I'll offer some for sale someday, but I'm just letting people know that I will not be offering the Legion books for sale anytime soon.
The Legion books.
That will not be happening.
NSF. NFS.
I think the cool thing, though, or not cool thing, because I think they should be worth more than this, but I will say, like that 294 issue, you might not be able to get out of a dollar bin. But most of these issues you can go get out of a dollar bin.
Oh, that's good.
That we read.
I mean, if that's what you're looking for and you want to have them in your collection, be able to flip through them, feel the paper, look at the ads. There are some books out there that it's just a joy to be able to do that. So go hunt them down.
Well, and I think the coloring is different too, right? The colors are more faded on the colors are more muted on the newsprint, but with the purples and the way they were, right? I kind of like them on the newsprint more because it makes Darkseid look darker, right? When you get it reprinted, it looks so. It's
been corrected. It's been updated or whatever. They can go in and change those tones and stuff. When you look at it on the classic print, the one that came out on the newsstand, it's definitely it's different. And it's aged too. Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's different. Yeah.
It's massively different. Yeah. I'm showing Greg the Legion of Superheroes Great Darkness Saga Deluxe Edition. There's a volume 1 and a volume 2.
You should just take that and burn it.
I'm not going to burn it. It has too many good interviews and source material. But anyway, I mean, we probably should start wrapping this one up because I know we've been on here a long time.
It's a long episode.
next week, we will... Wasn't I complaining earlier about those shows that have like a 30-minute episode and then an hour and a half long episode?
Yeah.
And then here we go, probably dropping like a, hour and a half long episode on folks. But hopefully you enjoyed the content on this one. If you like our content, you can obviously follow us on Facebook and X.
And Instagram.
Xtreme and Instagram. And YouTube. You can also just get the feed. You can click to the individual episodes there. You can also just subscribe to our podcast feed. And you can look for us on any podcast player. You can look at us on Podcast Addict, my favorite podcast player. But you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, wherever you want to look.
Get us on Zune.
Wherever you're looking for podcasts, look for Funny Book Forensics, and you will find us. If you want more of this contact, go back and you can see just how much Greg and I love comics, even when we have to read something that is not so good. Yeah. And, of course, speaking of things that are not so good, we'll be reading Starlight number 6 next week.
Oh, my gosh, dude. Wow. Oh, I can't believe you would say it. No, speaking of things that are not so good.
And Starlight number 5, they ripped my heart out, shredded it, spit it out, broke it up, crushed it, took my heart, put it on the ground, stomped on it some more, crushed it some more. Crushed it again, reinforced the crushing, and so now we're on to issue 6, which I don't know what happens next. So you know what? It may be a phenomenal book. Who knows?
Well, I got a gas can.
Well, we could prepare. So next week you can. Well, good news. Next week you can join us as I explore. I'm sure Greg knows all about Starlight since he helped write the book, but you get to see it through my eyes as I read Starlight issue 6 for the first time, and I will be doing it in the next 5 days because, quite frankly, I don't have an advanced copy, so I'm going to have to get that copy and hurry up and read it before we record again.
Fantastic! I can't wait.
I'm ready. Well, no, all kidding aside, it's a fantastic book. We will I don't know if it's a fantastic book. I shouldn't lie. The first 5 issues were fantastic, and if you're not getting it on Kickstarter, you're missing out. Good news, very soon they will have Kickstarter where you can buy all 7 issues and catch up. And I highly recommend it. It's fantastic. And I'm not just saying it because it's Greg. I mean, legitimately, I teared up in the last issue and left Travis, the co-author, a nice little review. And when we were at Omaha last year, we were standing next to Brett, and I got to tell Brett how mad I was at what he drew because he led me on and made me sad. And so,
oh my gosh, that was terrible.
But I think when art can move you in that way, it's a good story. And so, I'm excited to get a hold of the next issue genuinely. So we will review that. And then I'm not sure what's next.
We'll have to roll the dice and find out. There's a lot of different things we can read, and maybe you, listeners, I'll even put an S on there.
You know what they're gonna say, and you know what they're gonna say if you ask them. So
I don't know.
You know what they're going to say.
Absolute zeros.
So they're going to want us to read. No, they're going to remember.
Absolute zeros.
They're going to remember, and they're going to want us to read something.
If you're out there listening and you have a suggestion, put it in. I
don't know if I'm ready for that yet. I just don't know. I don't know if I'm ready.
US1?
That's fine.
Another issue of US1. More
I'm definitely not ready for whatever Big Bertha Fanny Fat Butt or whatever the character's name was.
Oh my gosh.
I can't handle that stereotyping. No,
it's too much for you.
It's too much. I can't handle that right now.
Okay.
But you know what? We'll see. I'm sure
there's a lot.
I'm sure our listeners will guide us to something. If not, I've got plenty of long boxes to reach into, and we can grab something out of those long boxes. So
it's true. Yeah. There's a lot of different things we can read. So we will have something on hand, and we will.
Okay. Well, I guess we probably should plug the last 2 things. Of course, Greg, you can find at the Retro Emporium on Meeker Street in Kent, Washington on many days, except this day because I have him here podcasting with me.
That's right.
And you can also, if you are in Tacoma and you want to learn a little bit about jiu-jitsu or get some legal help, you can contact Paul Boudreau at Certified Jiu-Jitsu, and, you can learn jiu-jitsu. I mean, I feel like that would be fun.
I mean, he's been trying to get me to...
Well, maybe, Greg, you should come down and
I have
try
time?
it out.
Oh, my gosh. I gotta make
When do you have time? You have time anytime you're willing to make it. All I have to do is reach out to Anne.
I guess that's the truth. Someone told me once, if you want to do something that you want to do, you'll make the time to do it. Maybe I just don't want to. Maybe I just don't want to get my tuchus handed to me by Paul Boudreau.
Well, if you want to learn high-level jiu-jitsu, he's the guy to train with in the area.
He's the guy. I've seen the videos. I've watched the award ceremonies. I've seen.
He also does legal things too.
He's my lawyer.
But
so.
Yeah, well, that's 27th in Jackson, right in Tacoma. You can go visit Certified Martial Arts, and yeah, I think that's all the pluggables for now. Obviously, Absolute Zero's Camp Launchpad is still out for sale, so you can still pick up one of those.
Pick it up. Lots of good reviews out there. Not a review by us, but lots of other good reviews out there. So
yeah, we have not reviewed it,
but there's a lot of talk.
I just realized that
a lot of talk out there, so a lot of people like it.
Well, maybe we'll review it someday too. But for now, Starlight's up next because that's what I'm reading next.
That's what Dan is reading next. He doesn't care.
That's what I'm reading next.
He doesn't
so
care.
we're
He doesn't want to go to summer
review
camp. He wants to go to space. Wait, he doesn't want to go to space camp. He wants to go to space. Okay, got it. Check.
On space spiders, transdimensional spider wizards.
Spider wizards. I mean, who doesn't like that?
And the spiders of Mars.
Spiders of Mars. What? Tiny human.
It's a David Bowie reference.
Is it? I was listening to David Bowie today. Bowie.
Yeah. Well, one of his most famous albums ends with the album title and the spiders from Mars.
David Bowie on cassette.
Oh, God. Yeah. Well, of course you were listening on cassette.
Yeah, on cassette.
You really have to have a refined taste.
Was it Space Oddity? Maybe that's it.
Well, Space Oddity is on that album.
Yes, and maybe Ziggy Stardust?
Yeah, Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars.
Yes, that's what I was listening to today. Oh boy, you referenced the thing I was listening to today.
And you didn't know the title.
I don't know, man. It's a long time ago. 5 o'clock happened way early this morning.
Ziggy plays guitar.
Oh, okay. David Bowie.
I love David Bowie. Well, anyway, all right, that's it. We're not talking anymore. This episode must end. But join us next week for Starlight number 6. And if you want to get a copy, you should be able to get one
just go
soon.
Yeah.
And if I find the link for it, I will send it out as this podcast. And if I don't, I'll send it out after the next podcast. So for Greg, this is Dan.
And for Dan,
I guess I'm talking for Greg. And this is another episode of Funny Book Forensics, your favorite podcast on project-nerd.com.
Woo! Get it.
Bye.
Bye. There's the button. Whenever I put the video up to watch you, to talk to you, I can't find the button, Dan.